Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here. Happy Friday. Today we've got a pretty quiet Tesla news day, so it should be a pretty quick episode, but we do have some interesting updates from Volkswagen, talk a little bit more about Kia's EV day that we mentioned earlier this week, got some details on the Cybertruck, the Semi, and a few other items as well. Alright, looking at the stock, not the best day for Tesla today, down 3% to close the week at $251.12. Also a tougher day for the NASDAQ, down 1.2%. You may have noticed that there was some disagreement between Yahoo and Google on the closing price, but looks like they've got that sorted out. If you saw it down a little bit less, unfortunately it did end at 251, so just wanted to clear that up in case you did see that as well. But let's hop into the news from Volkswagen here. So Bloomberg article headline, VW's new electric vehicle orders missed target. We can see here that they've got a quote on their update, or they've got a quote on their EV orders. But Volkswagen's new orders for EVs failed to meet the company's targets in the third quarter, with the quote being, "Our order intake is below our ambitious targets due to lower than expected overall market trend." So interesting update here from Volkswagen. They've actually seen, if we look at a little bit more context, they've actually seen growth on their EV business. Let me get this centered here. They did increase EVs to about 210,000 sales in the third quarter. So that's actually a 41% increase year over year. And I do want to actually pull in a little bit more context because although Bloomberg kind of chopped this quote out, it was part of a longer update from Volkswagen, which said that, quote, "Despite the current general reluctance in the European market to buy battery-powered vehicles, we gained market share and remained market leader in this segment. However, our order intake is below our ambitious targets due to the lower than expected overall market trend," end quote. So it does sound to me like they're maybe referencing specifically in Europe their order intake, as that kind of follows the update on the European market here. So I do think that's important context, but Europe has actually been pretty much their strongest market for EVs. They've really struggled in China year to date. Their EV growth there, I believe, is only up in the single-digit % range. So for them to then talk about having potential order issues in Europe as well, I think is a pretty strong signal for the business probably starting to, get to that point where we've talked about where maybe these EV makers are going to plateau a bit. I mean, that's exactly what we're seeing here for Volkswagen in China. Obviously, they had some pretty good growth years there early on, but now with that growth leveling out, this sort of an update where order intake is below their targets, obviously that makes growth much more difficult than when you're very early in the growth curve and you're just kind of growing up to those 100,000, 200,000 unit levels. So very interesting to see this update with Volkswagen, and is going to lead to an interesting period here because Volkswagen still has, like they say here, ambitious targets. A nice graph from Bloomberg here of what their announced targets are in terms of their EV penetration to their total business. So it looks like for 2025, they're, had previously mentioned targeting about 20% of their overall business growing to EVs, and then up to about 50% by 2030. But right now, their 2023 target, that was supposed to be 11%. They've actually dropped that target down to somewhere between 8 and 9% of total sales for this year. So tracking a little bit behind their targets. And if, they're starting to plateau with orders, we could see that continue to miss and, revised adjustments or, revised numbers and targets going forward. So for this quarter, it looks like it was about 9%. So I do think they'll probably meet this for the year. But still, I think it's starting to get tougher and tougher. And I think the comment here from Volkswagen is somewhat of evidence of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago with those targets, becoming tougher for automakers to hit. So, Volkswagen, obviously, we've seen a little bit of a shift in strategy for them too since Herbert Diess left. And I think they're kind of riding the plans that Diess put into effect right now, which has gotten to them to this point. But to continue to grow beyond that is going to take, again, tremendous effort, which I don't know that they're currently lined up to do. So we'll continue to keep an eye on their trend in coming quarters as they start to comp off against these, higher numbers in 2024. All right, quick update on Kia as we wrap up with other automakers, kind of reverse order today with the lack of Tesla news. But Kia did hold their EV day as we had previously talked about. So they introduced concepts for both the Kia EV3 and Kia EV4. I believe this is the EV4 here. So that'll be a EV sedan. And then the EV3, that is going to be more of a compact SUV, sort of in the style or the form factor of the Kia EV9, but downsized a little bit. I didn't see, at least in the press release, any dates for those, but we'll keep an eye out for more information as that comes out from Kia. Usually they're pretty quick with turning around these vehicles. And then the rest of EV Day, just kind of talking about their EV plans in general. One thing I did note that was kind of interesting, they did say that in the first half of 2024, they have the Kia app scheduled for release. So that's obviously one area where we see Tesla have a pretty big advantage right now, to say the least. And it'll be interesting to see what Kia, what their offering looks like for their app early next year. All right, getting into the Tesla news, again, just a couple of quick things today. So we've got a video that was posted on X by Nick Cruz Patain, I think that would be said. So it looks like this is a video from inside Giga Texas, where Tesla's producing 4680s, and some of the storage facilities that they've got there for that battery production. So not a whole lot, I think, that we could probably take away from here, other than obviously looks like there's, racks of cell storage here, which is nice to see, kind of all in one place. And, no surprise when Tesla's now produced 20 million of these things that they've got significant storage for it, but still an interesting kind of look behind the scenes at that 4680 facility. So kind of cool to see that. This person did also respond to a question on how old this video was and said that they didn't ask, but fairly recent they thought. They did ask if the majority of these were for Cybertruck, and kind of interestingly, the response was that most of them are going into 4680 Model Ys. But right now, obviously, we've seen the 4680 Model Y, at least to the best of our knowledge, discontinued, or at least not in the design studio. So a little bit perplexing on that. Maybe that comes back at some point. Maybe Tesla's got other plans, or maybe it was an old video and at the time these were going into the 4680s, or into the Model Ys, the 4680 version of the Model Y. And then one other quick update on the Cybertruck today from cybertruckownersclub.com. This person did come across, so day one reservation holder, just kind of a new account here, but they did come across a Cybertruck out in the wild, and they did get a little bit of measurements here. It's, not the most official measurement from the pavement, but they found that the width of the Cybertruck, according to their measurements, was around, I believe, 78 inches. So I think they said the rear bumper was around 72, but then total width around 78. And then obviously they put their watermark on here. Hopefully that's not referring to Tesla Daily, as we would always credit the Cybertruck Owners Club and have many times in the past. But for those that were curious, we get a little bit of a look there at what the dimensions might be. I think I read that that's a little bit narrower than the F-150 would be, but I would need to confirm that. And again, obviously this is just kind of a loose gauge from the pavement again. Nevertheless, interesting to see that. And then we've got a little bit more information on the Tesla Semi from the Run On Less event. This is from Automotive News. They said that the company, I believe this would be PepsiCo, is the company they'd be referring to here, obviously operating the semis, said that 60% of the miles driven over that Run On Less event were driven with a gross vehicle weight, which includes the freight, obviously, of over 70,000 pounds. So the limit for that for EVs is 82,000 pounds. For non-EV trucks, it's 80,000 pounds. EVs get a little bit extra. But nearly a full load there, and that's a weight that's pretty typical apparently in the logistics industry. So that was something that we had wondered about when we were looking at that data, if these were, fully occupied vehicles up to kind of the weight capacity. And it looks for a lot of the miles that were driven, that was, a pretty full load. So nice to have a little bit more insight on that. I don't know if we have any additional data that's broken that down further. I'll take a look at that, but nice to see an indication there that at least the majority of the miles were, pretty close to full weight. And obviously, as we've already talked about with the results, I think very strong there, very supportive of the Tesla Semi and what it can do for the trucking industry. And then just a couple other quick things here. So Drive Tesla Canada on X noting that the referral program has a new prize, potential prize awarded. So this is a long-range Model Y sweepstakes. This will end in January. So we had previously talked about the sweepstakes for the Model 3 performance version. Very similar update here with Tesla, offering a sweepstakes for the Model Y, which will end, at the end of, at the end of this quarter and be sort of delivered in early 2024. So the Model 3 that ended, I believe, actually might have ended last week, but looks like now, another new prize for the upcoming quarter. And we'll see if Tesla continues to kind of swap those out quarter by quarter. And then just an update on a kind of an old story here. There was many years ago, a Model X, I believe, that was found in the middle of a frozen lake, and it had become on fire somehow. It had burned down somehow, and there was a lot of reporting on it at that point in time. It has now been concluded that this was arson. The person, or I guess insurance fraud, maybe not arson, but the owner set it on fire, left it in the middle of the lake. So, there was obviously reporting and questioning at the time if that was something that the Tesla vehicle started on fire, or if it was man-made. We now have that confirmation. This is actually an update on an older report that actually gave us this confirmation already. So we have talked about this, but it's making the news again. But it was determined back in 2021 that this was the case, that it was started by the owner. Anyway, the owner has now been sentenced, so that's why it's appearing in the news today. Again, if you did happen to see that. So just wanted to provide a little bit of context on that, but always nice to get a little bit more information on some of those older mysteries, which seemed pretty clear at the time, but still remain a little bit mysterious. And then last few things outside of Tesla. So we've got an update from WUWA on the CATL Shanghai plant. So this is very close to Giga Shanghai. The production capacity for this is supposed to be around 80 gigawatt hours per year. And as you can see from the WUWA video here, it's getting pretty close to finish. I don't know if it's actually quite there yet. As you can see, there's a little bit of a question mark here in WUWA's title about Shanghai plant opens. But he also interestingly noticed this vehicle that was out there driving around testing. We can see in the test lot here. He said that it kind of looked like a Tesla, but not close enough that he thinks it's a Tesla. He thinks it's something else, but wasn't quite sure what it was. So kind of interesting. Obviously, a lot of people expect most of, or at least a significant portion of the production here from CATL to go to Giga Shanghai, as it's so closely co-located. But other automakers, or maybe even CATL themselves, have plans to use those batteries as well. So we'll try to keep an eye out for that as we get more information on kind of the ramp for the CATL factory there. And then just real quick, Tesla merch. So if you didn't see it yesterday, Tesla has added a couple new items to the shop. The Cyberbeer and Cyberstein limited edition set, although it's limited edition, still in stock. And then the Cyber opener to kind of go along with that, which I think is out of stock. It had a little indicator there before. Yeah, let's see. So Cyber opener out of stock right now. I wouldn't be too surprised if Tesla added that back. Seems like a pretty easy to produce one. But if you are interested in those, you can find those on the Tesla shop, at least in the US. Obviously, the Cyber beer, probably very similar to the Giga beer that Tesla had introduced in Germany a while back. And then, last couple of things. So SpaceX today, just a couple of quick updates. I had to push the stream a little bit today because SpaceX actually just completed a launch of 22 Starlinks on Falcon 9, but not the only activity for SpaceX today, as this morning they launched Falcon Heavy again. So those are always particularly exciting. This one is a very interesting mission. So it's the Psych mission. This is going to be, the launch was for Psych, and they're going to be now voyaging for 6 years out to this asteroid to, do some reconnaissance, some research on that asteroid, the Psych asteroid, which is going to be very interesting. So we'll have to wait a long time for an update on that, but always exciting to see a Falcon Heavy mission, first of all, and then this one is particularly unique. So again, a while from now, but it'll be fun to, get the results of that many years from now. And then just a quick look at the calendar as we go into next week. So we will have kind of the normal economic reports, and then Fed Chairman Jerome Powell is speaking on Thursday. It sounds like that'll be his last update before the FOMC meeting in November. They go into a blackout period right before that. And this one will actually be more important than the last time we talked about Fed Chair Powell speaking. That was kind of just a teacher's Q&A. This one is at the Economic Club of New York, so probably worth keeping an eye on the impact of that next week. All right, that'll wrap it up for today and for the week. So as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on X at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you on Monday for the October 16th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.